Greece, the island of Crete. On the Lassithi Plateau, over half a mile above sea level, lies the Dictyon Cave. This sprawling complex of caverns stretches nearly 1.5 square miles. And archaeological finds have shown a human presence dating as far back as 6,000 years ago. Historians believe the first inhabitants of the area actually lived inside the cave. And according to legend, its many chambers were once home to an otherworldly being, Zeus, the Greek god of thunder. In Greek mythology, Zeus is the son of Cronus, the king of the first generation of gods, known as the Titans.
Zeus's father, Cronos, is not particularly excited about giving birth to a child because he's heard a prophecy that one of his children is going to overthrow him. So just as soon as his children are born, he just swallows them all down. Now, his mother, Rhea, who's Cronos' wife, is distraught about this, so what she does is substitute a rock that she's wrapped up in swaddling clothes, gives it to Cronos, which he swallows down. And what she does is hide Zeus away in a cave, so he grows up there.
In Theogony, the 8th century BC poet Hesiod describes the cave Zeus was hidden in as lying in these very mountains, and specifically near the city of Lyktos, the location of the Dictyon Cave. But the similarities between this cave and the cave of Zeus described in Greek mythology go much further.
The ancients say that when they are talking about mythology, it is about unrecorded events of their past. According to the Greek myths, the child Zeus was nourished on a mixture of honey and milk at the udder of the goat. Now, around 1900 AD, a chamber in the Dictyon Cave was identified by locals as the birthplace of Zeus. And when archaeologists went in there, they discovered an altar with remains of numerous religious offerings, amongst them honey and goat milk. These remains date back 4,000 years to the exact period in which the ancient Greek stories took place. The question is this once again a coincidence that modern excavations find remains in this cave that match up with what's written in Greek mythology?
Also found in the Dictyon Cave were numerous artifacts dating back to what would have been the time of Zeus's childhood, according to the Greek stories. Among them was a fragmentary inscription bearing a hymn dedicated specifically to Zeus. Could the Dictyon Cave really be the cave described in Theogony? And if actual locations from Greek mythology really do exist, could legendary characters and events also be based on historical fact?
We think of mythology as something which has been invented. But really, when we look at the ancient Greeks, they believed that the War of the Titans physically happened, that this was a war which was fought in heavens by the deities.
In Greek mythology, the War of the Titans is a celestial battle waged by Zeus and his siblings, known as the Olympians, against their father Cronus and the Titans. The Olympians, who are the victors in this battle, were the gods worshipped by the ancient Greeks. But according to ancient astronaut theorists, these human-like beings may have been something other than divine, and this mythical war may have been an actual historical event. To support this claim, they point to the existence of similar myths and stories told by different cultures throughout the world.
When it comes to warring parties of gods, Greece is not a standalone issue. We have the same thing in Ragnarok. In Norwegian mythology, we have this idea that the gods fought amongst themselves as well. We also have stories from Sumerian, Babylonian, Hittite accounts where it says that the wars were fought between gods.
We see the same story of Titans being overthrown by a new set of gods. In the Sumerian epics of the Anunnaki coming here as the original culture in ancient Iraq. So these similarities tell of a warring race of beings that squabbled amongst themselves about the rights of various areas on the earth.
The Tonle Sap Lake, Cambodia. This combined lake and river system has a flow that changes direction twice a year, and the portion that forms the lake expands and shrinks dramatically with the seasons. But this unusual body of water is unique for another reason. It is said to hold the mythical sword of Priya Pisnokar.
The swordsman in Cambodia has a wonderful legend and a story within that culture called Pisnokar. This is a wizard, a master craftsman.
In Cambodian mythology, Priya Pisnokar is the son of a human man and a woman who came from the sky. The stories say that he is brought to the sky world, where he is taught the technology of the gods. And some have credited him as being the architect behind the world's largest religious shrine, Angkor Wat, which sits just north of the Tonle Sap Lake. But in addition to magnificent structures, Priya Pisnokar was also said to have fashioned a sword that made him invincible in battle.
In the Cambodian legend, he's been credited crafting a sword as thin as a feather.
Priya Pisnokar hatte außerdem ein Schwert.
Priya Pisnokar had a sword that could cut stone, and it's reported that he could use this to cut a ceramic jug so finely down the middle that the water only ran out when the two halves fell apart.
According to legend, Priya Pisnokar threw his mighty weapon into the Tonle Sap Lake when it grew too weak to be of use to him anymore. Much like Excalibur was given back to the Lady of the Lake in the story of King Arthur. But how does a sword grow weak? According to ancient astronaut theorists, the blade had lost its power, and that blade was not made of metal, but of light.
Does a sword of fire really exist? Well, it does, if you think of a type of lightsaber. Whenever he took it out to cut something with it, it was more blinding than the sun.
It was very thin and very bright, emitting light. From the description of it, it could be a kind of laser type of beam.
Lasers, what you want to just think about is a whole bunch of waves all moving together in step. The light that comes out of a light bulb is a bunch of random people in a mob running crazy in all different directions. And the laser is all the people marching orderly fashion. Everything lines up and basically makes the light that much more powerful and effective.
Could Priya Pisnokar really have existed? And if so, might the amazing sword he wielded have involved some type of laser technology? Is it possible that lightsabers, a work of modern science fiction, actually existed in the ancient past?
So there's two ways to think of a lightsaber that you're trying to make. One is actually out of a laser beam, and that's very hard to imagine because it's hard to figure out how you get the end point, because light just keeps traveling, and you would need a way to bend it back on itself. They make much more sense as a plasma beam, and a plasma beam is a bunch of very, very energetically charged particles that would glow, so you'd get the effect of the lightsaber. And they're much easier to have an endpoint because they respond to magnetic fields. The plasma beam really is energetically charged particles with a lot of energy and pretty much cut through anything.
For ancient astronaut theorists, descriptions of laser-type technology can be found in numerous texts throughout the ancient world.
China heißt der Yin- und Yang-Spiegel.
In China, it's called a yin-yang mirror, which could kill opponents with a beam of light. We have the Maori, whose god defeated rebels with a kind of laser lightning weapon.
Stories come to us from ancient India of Rama's arrow, which was some kind of laser weapon. We have the famous story of Archimedes using some kind of magic mirror to create a laser that set ships on fire. So it seems that ancient lasers were being used, and that technology probably came from extraterrestrials.
Chicago, Illinois, 2006. Scientists pioneer a stunning biomechanical advancement, a thought-controlled robotic arm. Outfitted with electrodes that connect to the nerves of the wearer, the prosthetic works just like an actual arm and hand, receiving signals from the brain and giving the user a functioning new limb. But as scientifically sophisticated as this is, ancient astronaut theorists point to a remarkably similar account in an ancient story from the British Isles.
Irish myth has a story about a divine physician called Diansect. He has herbs to heal every affliction of the human body and soul. And the people, whether they're wounded in battle or they're afflicted in childbirth or miscarriage or headaches or whatever the malady is, they will go to Diansect for healing.
Diansect is known as the physician of the gods, or he was the celebrated physician of the Tuatha De Danann, which was sort of a semi-divine early group of people in Irish lore.
According to Celtic tradition, the Tuatha De Danann were a race of supernatural beings that came to Ireland riding on dark clouds. Diankect was one of these otherworldly beings, and a physician who sometimes used his knowledge to treat humans. In the most famous account of his medical feats, the Irish god heals a king named Nuada, who becomes injured in battle.
During a heated battle, Nuada lost his arm. Because of this, he could no longer be king. Kings were supposed to be physically pure, according to the ideas of this time. So he had to surrender his kingship for a while, and during this time period, Diankect was the one who actually fashioned him an arm out of silver. So he became known as Nuada of the Silver Hand, or Nuada of the Silver Arm.
The story of Diankect giving King Nuad an arm that was made out of silver really sounds like a modern science fiction story. It almost sounds like prosthetics.
Is the story of Diankect a myth, as mainstream historians believe? Or might King Nuada's silver arm have actually been an advanced bionic machine, just like the ones being developed today? If so, is it possible that the Celtic god Diankect was, in fact, an extraterrestrial being?
According to this legend, Diankect replaced King Nuada's arm with a silver arm that was fully functional. So is it possible that what we have here is an account of some type of prosthetics that existed already way back in the past?
It would seem that these legends are talking about what are really pretty high-tech medical devices and knowledge, the kind of medical knowledge that we have today and has taken hundreds of years of expensive research to find. So it would seem that they had these devices in ancient times too. But where would they have gotten them? It would seem to have been from extraterrestrials.
Greece, the 6th century BC. Nearchus, the father of philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras, was traveling home from work one day when he came upon an abandoned infant staring at the sun. And he was surviving solely on the dew from a nearby tree.
Nisarchus named this baby Astraios, which literally means star child in Greek. And here is an early example of a magical child. He adopted it, he raised it with Pythagoras and his two brothers, so it was part of their family.
According to the Greek myth, as recorded by Antonius Diogenes, Nisarchus gave the child to Pythagoras to be his servant and apprentice. Although Pythagoras is considered one of history's greatest mathematical minds, some ancient astronaut theorists believe he may have received advanced knowledge from the boy Astraeus.
It's believed that Astraeus was actually sent to Earth in order to instruct Pythagoras, whose mystic concepts became foundational to the ancient world.
So here we have a curious story of someone named Starchild, who had these special powers, whose birth is really a mystery. And so this child, Astraeus, was perhaps one of the early extraterrestrial children sent to planet Earth.
Could this peculiar child have actually instructed one of the greatest minds of the ancient world? And considering the Greeks described powerful beings who came down from the sky, is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, that Astraeus was the offspring of the gods, part human and part divine?
Many ancient cultures, among them the ancient Greeks and the Egyptians and many others, describe how some children were born from humans and the so-called gods. Star children are what some consider a new breed of people.
Is the story of Astraeus really an early account of a star child? And if the star children have existed here on Earth throughout our history, what is the source of their superior intelligence and unexplainable abilities?
Science tells us that in addition to the 2-strand double helix DNA, there's an additional 10 etheric strands of DNA that is dormant in humans and has been since recorded history. It's highly possible that alien creators have designed us this way, and certain individuals are chosen throughout time to awaken these dormant strands in order to help mankind advance.
Are star children really tapping into something inherent in our DNA? According to geneticist David Reich of the Harvard Medical School, there is, in fact, something mysterious inside us that has yet to be identified. In his study published in the fall of 2013, Reich examined the genome of Neanderthals and another group of ancient hominids known as Denisovans, both of which interbred with humans. He discovered that their DNA, dating back more than 400,000 years, contains an unknown ancestor.
Now, this is incredibly exciting to me because I've always maintained that what some geneticists currently refer to as junk DNA might not be junk after all. And this study proves this in part. DNA is a code. And just because its code hasn't been cracked yet doesn't mean it's actually junk. And to speculate even further, what if this unknown species was not of earthly origin? And every human being already is part alien.